Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
All across central New York.
Time expired! Syracuse has done it!
It's drive time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting one.
We welcome you into a Friday drive time. A happy hour Friday drive time. For the next hour, we'll be talking Syracuse basketball. That's what we've been talking for the last, 4 months at this point. We'll be talking all about the big picture stuff around Orange basketball, and we continue to welcome your phone calls on anything you want to discuss around Syracuse basketball. That includes the women's basketball team that again got another nice win on the road yesterday at Boston College. Nice win in the sense that they just beat the brakes off of BC. BC was not good, we thought, going into the game, and they played really not well, and it was supposed to be an easy win, and you can't take too much from that individual game. But there is a lot to like about the way the women's basketball team is playing right now. 19-4 on the season, 9-3 in conference play, and a huge ACC home game on Sunday inside the Dome. Noon tip against 6th-ranked Louisville. They lost in a thriller last night at home at the Yum Center to fellow tied for first place going into last night, Duke. Both of them were undefeated on big, long winning streaks, and Duke clipped them by 1 on a missed free throw late from Louisville women's basketball. They're still number 6 in the country. They are 21-4, and they are 11-1 in ACC play. And the Orange looking for their first ranked win of the season as they take on Louisville on Sunday. So very much looking forward to that game. I'll be on the call for that as always. 11:45 pregame on ESPN Radio. Noon tip. It's on the CW, nationally televised on the CW on Sunday. But get on out to the Dome Sunday. That should be a big crowd. The team deserves a big crowd for that huge game against Louisville, one of the best teams in the country. And we'll see what Syracuse has in that matchup against one of the best teams in the nation, 6th-ranked Louisville, on Sunday. Men's lacrosse tomorrow inside the Dome at noon as well. And I will have the radio play-by-play call of that one, too. That game will actually be on ESPN Radio Syracuse tomorrow because we got men's basketball at Virginia on TK99. Remember, Virginia, the men's basketball team, still playing games. That's still happening. They still have to play the remaining 8 games of the regular season. And we'll see what they have tomorrow in a very tough situation, going to Charlottesville and playing one of the best teams in the nation, and a Virginia team that hired a new coach, has reloaded, really put in a lot of NIL resources for said new coach in Ryan Odom, and they have hit the ground running. And they have had a very good year in the first year under Ryan Odom, and there's a lot to like about what Virginia is doing. And I know a lot of you have brought up some of the great examples of new coach, better NIL resources, and let's hope that Syracuse is one of those teams next year if they do move on from Adrian Autry. And we still do have to say if, and a lot of you are going to get mad at me for still saying if, but the season still has 8 games remaining, and there is still a chance that Syracuse does make it into the NCAA tournament, although it feels incredibly slim, and it would probably require them winning the NCAA tournament. There still is a need to say if about Adrian Autry. That being said, we will continue the conversation of what you guys want to talk about today on our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. We are taking your phone calls on who you think should be the next head coach at Syracuse, how Syracuse corrects what has been a decline in the program in the last decade. How do they get it back to the upper echelon of the sport? How do they get back inside the top 25 and back into the conversation of Not if, there I go with if again, not if they will make the tournament, but what seed and when will they be going to the NCAA tournament is more the question. We saw the lacrosse team finally get back to the Final Four last year, and they will play their second game of the season tomorrow against St. Joe's at noon. We'll have a pregame still at 11:30 tomorrow. ESPN Radio Syracuse for lacrosse tomorrow. Men's basketball on TK. Women's basketball game Sunday. Big fun weekend ahead of Syracuse sports, and we're off and running on Drive Time this afternoon. 315-437-7644. Always the phone number to call for ESPN 44. Again, 315-437-7644. We begin today with our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. And let's talk about the name that comes up online a ton when I see the chatter of who should be the next Syracuse basketball head coach. Josh Schertz seems to be the hottest name in the sport right now in terms of head coach that is looking to make a leap. He is the St. Louis head coach, and his name is going to come up for every big-time school that has an opening this year. And it feels like the Twitter, social media, online crowd love this guy. And it feels like the callers or the FM radio crowd seem to like the idea more of Jerry McNamara or Mike Hopkins. That's just my sense of it. Could be wrong, but it just feels like it is very adamantly on Twitter, Josh Schertz or one of the outside candidates. And if you even utter the words Jerry McNamara or Mike Hopkins to anyone online, they will scream at you, yell at you, and get very upset that you even uttered their names. It feels like the family or outside the family debate. You have to be on one side, and you have to be very adamant on that side. And that's kind of the nature of society today. So if you're one of those people that is very adamant on the family side, you can call in. If you're one of those people that is very adamant that they need to clean out the Boeheim tree, they need to go outside the family, you can call in and lay out your reasons for either of those today. And we will have an open forum here, and we will discuss the pros and cons of both options and what to make of how Syracuse needs to get this back on track, or what are the things they can do. On Josh Schertz, who is a name that, as I mentioned, is going to be on everyone's wish list, it seems like, this year. He seems like a terrific offensive mind who, if Syracuse could get an interview with him and if they could land him as the head coach, it seems like that would be a very solid hire right now. If they do move on from Adrian Autry and they bring in Josh Schertz, there's a lot to like about Josh Schertz as the next head coach at Syracuse. He is the hottest name on the market for a reason. But knowing that he is the hottest name on the market, he's going to need a big salary and a very enticing job in terms of NIL budget. Here's what we know of Josh Schertz. He was at Indiana State, and he did a good job with that program, 3 seasons there. And he had offers to move on from Indiana State to the Power Conference level. He decided to go to St. Louis instead of taking said Power Conference offers. Now, he probably did not have an offer from a school that's in the same tier as Syracuse, of course, a couple years ago. He's going to have offers from pretty much everyone this cycle, it seems like. But he declined the opportunity to jump into the Power Conference pool a couple years ago, and he decided, I'm going to go to St. Louis because they're going to pay me over $2 million, which is a very good salary to hand out for a mid-major head coach. And they're going to give me reportedly over $1 million more in NIL budget than Indiana State was going to give him. And Indiana State tried to keep him. They raised his salary with a counteroffer, and he said no. The Athletic was speculating the other day in an article I read about Josh Schertz that they kind of compared him to Shaka Smart of VCU, going back to when VCU went on that run to the Final Four, and how it was very clear Shaka Smart was that big-time mid-major name that everyone wanted. And when you're in that position, you have the luxury of maybe sitting out a year and saying, you know what? The right job isn't there for me. I'll just go back to St. Louis because I'm making over $2 million there, and I've got a great NIL budget. I'm going to continue to succeed at St. Louis, and my stock's going to continue to rise. It's not out of the realm of possibility, according to The Athletic, that Josh Schertz just stays at St. Louis. I think the way that it's setting up right now, Syracuse is one of the biggest jobs of this cycle. I want to make that clear. And Josh Schertz is one of the biggest names of this cycle. So, of course, they should inquire. And you hope that Josh Schertz views Syracuse as one of the biggest jobs. And I think it makes a lot of sense why a lot of you are very into the idea of Josh Schertz. Now, as far as his style of coach and him being a tremendous offensive mind at the mid-major level and how well will that translate, that's a separate conversation. I typically don't love the offensive whiz who is at the mid-major level, who's running great sets and has not proven it at the power conference level yet, because in my eyes, the power conference level, you don't have to run as intricate of sets. That's not going to be as much of a separator. Now, Josh Schertz is not just that. He's a great developer. He's been a great recruiter. He's checked a lot of boxes as an all-around head coach. But last year, the name that all of you were bringing up on our shows and online on Twitter was Niko Medvedev. That's who everyone wanted last year. He was kind of the Josh Schertz of last year. Now, it was very clear Adrian Autry was not going to get fired last year, but Niko Medvedev was the hot name last year. He's at Minnesota, and he's a game below 500. And we have not talked about him at all. Just because Josh Schertz is the hottest name right now, it's really hard to win at the power conference level. There's a chance he goes to LSU or he gets a big-time salary job from Oklahoma, and we don't hear of him ever again. And he's just kind of an okay coach. The LSU coach right now used to be at Murray State, and he was the hottest name, and now everyone wants him fired. Porter Moser is on the hot seat at Oklahoma, and he was a big-time name at Loyola Chicago, and I thought was going to be a surefire slam dunk hire, and it really hasn't worked out. So I'm just pointing those out as obvious points of fact here that Josh Schertz is the biggest name, but Josh Schertz isn't 100% certainty to work out. Now, is he a better option than Jerry McNamara or Mike Hopkins? That's more of probably the conversation you guys want me to have. And I think that is a very fair take right now if you believe Josh Schertz is the guy that should be on the top of the list for Syracuse basketball. The only thing with that is let's just keep in mind that in order for Syracuse to get him, they have to step up their game probably in terms of NIL and resources and support for the program. I think they could very well do that. I'm not saying they won't. I'm not saying rule it out, but it's just a point of fact right now that if you're Josh Schertz and you are wanted by everyone this offseason and you're going to have bidders, Syracuse is going to have to pay him more than they are paying Adrian Autry right now. We're guessing. I don't know Adrian Autry's salary. It's not out there, but I think we can confidently say they're going to have to pay the head coach more in salary and give him more of an NIL budget to attract Josh Schertz, the St. Louis head coach. Can they do that? That's a separate conversation that I don't have all the answers to. I think it's pretty clear this is a very important time for Syracuse basketball. It's a very important hire. I'm sure everyone in administration and at the upper levels of Syracuse athletics understands that, and I'm sure they are doing all they can to get the best coach possible. Will Josh Schertz pick Syracuse, the same Josh Schertz that made the decision a couple years ago pretty clearly based on salary of himself and salary of the roster that you have to go to St. Louis? And we also have to keep in mind, will Syracuse stay as one of the top jobs of the cycle? Because Right now, Hubert Davis is kind of on the hot seat. You hope if you're a Syracuse fan that Hubert Davis doesn't get fired because immediately UNC jumps to the biggest job this cycle. Whether you want to address the situation of NIL or not, and if you want to just claim prestige of the program, UNC is still a bigger job than Syracuse. Bill Self has had some health scares lately. If he retires at the end of the season, Kansas is a bigger job than Syracuse. There's always some surprises. There's always some retirements you don't really see coming. Michigan State, Tom Izzo, Rick Barnes, Tennessee, Dana Altman, Oregon. Could they retire? Sure, they could retire. And they're probably getting asked questions about, are you coming back? And we'll see. But right now, I do feel like Syracuse is in a good spot where they're one of the better jobs in the cycle as it stands right now. Are they one of the better jobs from an NIL resources standpoint? We don't know all the answers to that. There's not transparency on that. My best guess is they're not one of the better jobs right now from an NIL resources standpoint. That doesn't mean that they couldn't do what NC State, Virginia, Miami did, which was bring in a big-name coach and also completely up your resources so that that coach gets off to a good start. And then from there, you get the program back on track when the program was declining and it really needed a year to get back on track. I don't have the answers to how much Syracuse feels they need to up their game or how capable they are of upping their game from a resources standpoint. But I do know that the name that all of you want online, Josh Schertz, is going to most likely need Syracuse to do that to get him. So if you want to call in and talk about any of that, if you want to talk about Josh Schertz, if you want to talk about Mike Hopkins, Jerry McNamara and his Siena team got a big win last night, we can talk about potentially the next head coach. We can also talk about the team that's still playing right now and is going to play Virginia tomorrow, and we can dive into that matchup as we continue here on Drive Time. 315-437-7644. We're back with more Drive Time. You're listening to it on ESPN Radio or watching it on QSportsTalk.com. What up, chat? Yeah, you don't need to, Super Cat, but everyone seems to be on one side or the other. Well, this new ad threw me off for a second. Drive Time took a couple days off and the chat is dead. They forgot we were on. Snuck in a Friday show on you guys. What I missed in the first hour of Orange Nation? Any yelling? Oh, my chat was just down. I see now. What the heck? My chat's not loading. Here we go. Now I'm getting it. Gavendo no beer. We're talking about that. Gavendo's beer. Schertz has a $4 million buyout. Yep. Going to take $6 million a year in salary. I don't know about $6 million. That's a lot, Philly, but it's going to take a lot of money, yeah. I think you're right that it's dubious to think, a little dubious to think that they could compete with like UNC or a Kansas for him. Spatch and Louise, I've stated on here that my educated guess is their roster is about $6.5 to $7 million right now. And their total budget for the players on the men's basketball team, which most likely puts them, we don't know for sure, but probably like 8th, 9th, 10th in the ACC. It's reported that there are 5 schools in the ACC with $8 million or more in their budget. I went through it on a recent show and everyone yelled at me, and you'll go on Twitter and you'll see stuff that's wrong, but I feel confident in saying that that's about what their budget is, which is about middle of the pack in the league, and that's probably not going to get you Josh Shirts. Good points, Bryce Drew and Jared Calhoun. I think Jared Calhoun will be a hot name for sure. I don't really get the Brian Hodgson. I don't know. I just don't see that one as much. Maybe I'm in the minority there. I understand the love for Josh Shirts. He's objectively the biggest name right now. Ryan, I would say, I said it on Orange Nation, my best guess is they lose a close game to Louisville. I can't say they're going to win until I sort of see them. I mean, in their games against ranked teams early on in the year, they didn't do well, but I think they're a much better team now. They did play well against a pretty much ranked UNC team. I think it'll be a good game, though. Hope it's a good crowd. Yeah, of course, Kev.
1440 AM.
$1.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
Welcome back into Drive Time on a Friday afternoon. Took a couple days off of Drive Time, but we are back after I was on the road with women's basketball. And they just kept on winning. Dominated Boston College yesterday. Almost tough to watch BC women's basketball yesterday. They are incredibly undersized, and their roster is just couldn't even remotely compete with anyone in the ACC this year. And it's out there as basically as good of a fact that BC women's basketball has $0 to spend on their roster. And that's an example in the age of NIL and in the age of the Wild Wild West. Even in women's basketball, you're just not going to be competitive. I don't care how good your coach is. Joanna Burnaby McNamee, I think, is a pretty good coach for the BC women's team. She was at UAlbany before she took the BC job, and they had a good team last year. I mean, for BC, they were pretty solid, and if they had returned that group from last year, they would have been very competitive in the ACC this year. You go through their roster, they lost 11 players to the portal, and Taya Sidbury went to Texas, I believe. Tiana Todd went to Ohio State. So a lot of big-time schools went after their players. They just could not keep them because they did not have the resources. And I'm not saying Syracuse is Boston College. They are far from it, especially in women's basketball. You can tell that this year's team in terms of Syracuse women's basketball is an example of when you do have the resources, here's a good roster and here's what you can put together. But it's just almost tough to watch some of the coaches in the sport now that just have to throw their hands up and have nothing. I'm not saying Joanna Burnaby McNamee is blameless or a coach with a bad NIL situation is blameless, but it does feel like that's a big part of the story for Boston College women's basketball. Let's go to the phone lines for the first time this afternoon. Let's go to Scooter in Jamesville kicking us off. What's up, Scooter?
Well, it's amazing what you said that St. Louis is willing to pay $2 million and it's, mid-major. I can understand why people want to stay and don't move. Like when Kentucky opened up, you really didn't have everybody jumping, and you can almost have everything you want at Kentucky, and they end up taking a former player that's at BYU, and even in football when Alabama opened up, ended up with a coach from Washington. So if they're paying this much, St. Louis and places like that, why move? Because as long as they play well in the conference and make the tournament, where's the pressure? That's why I thought maybe Lego from Colgate, he's got the perfect spot. I think he's got down there. They've been in the tournament 4 years. And I think he's the second or third highest paid employee at Colgate, and you lose the pressure. Just make the tournament, and that's all you got to worry about and stuff. And also, Timmy, I want to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
When they moved from the Big East, Syracuse played that not on campus a lot. We've always were playing the Georgetowns, the Villanovas, the St. John's, basically in sterile arenas. I thought Syracuse would have troubles going to the ACC because basically we're all on campus now. It's a lot tougher to let them win on campus than the Big East were. For example, Villanova had a 30-game winning streak on campus, but we never played them on campus. So I never thought they were going to have the success on the road, but like they did in the Big East.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it plays a factor a little bit, Scoot. I don't know if it has a huge bearing on why the team has struggled. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I find it kind of crazy when people are going back revisionist history to that decision of joining the ACC as the downfall of the program, because the first year they were obviously very successful. But your point's well taken that it's definitely a tougher level of competition, and you're probably playing in tougher atmospheres in a given year, I guess, right. A little bit. I don't know if that changed things that dramatically, though. I mean, it's one factor, and there are definitely bigger factors than that.
Yeah, but I know. But if you remember Georgetown, when they tried to keep Syracuse fans out because 2,000 or 3,000 fans would show up for the game. And when we played Madison Square Garden in St. John's, it felt like a home game for Syracuse. Which basically, when you play in the ACC, I don't think there's too many spots, especially down Tobacco Road, where you feel Syracuse has 3,000-4,000 fans in the arena. I'm not saying that they should. I think they should win more games. I'm just saying that I knew it was going to be tougher to win on the road because, like I said, I think there's 7 locations in the Big East. Syracuse never played on campus. And to me, that's a lot easier. I think playing in sterile arenas where we can get your fans and they play harder. But it'll be interesting to who the new coach is going to be. I had my people I like. I still think if he wanted to come from Colgate, I know Paulie's not a big fan, but I don't think, to me, the guys won there.
Matt Langle,
that's a tough place to win that many championships. And by the way, his players that he recruits, that Paulie's worried about, they're all playing Big Four. You got a guy Smith who's playing for Gonzaga, and I think Pittsburgh poached a player from him. And he actually brought in players from Northwestern and teams like that to play for him. So I'm not worried about the recruiting part, that part.
Yeah, I think it's objectively, you just have to say that Matt Langle is a terrific basketball coach. We appreciate you checking in, Scooter. We got more phone calls to get to. We'll get to Nick in just a second. Matt Langle is not going to be the sexiest name ever. Obviously, no one's going to be running necessarily to the NIL coffers to go crazy if they hire Matt Langle, but he is a very good basketball coach. I think he could do better, probably. I think that given that you are Syracuse and you're in a position where this is a very important time in the program, and as I said, I think I differ from Paulie a little bit. I haven't heard everything Paulie said in the last couple shows, but I feel that he is looking at it just from a resources lens, which is very, very important. I'm usually the guy that's reminding everyone how important resources are, and I get yelled at for that. And I agree with Paulie that LSU and Oklahoma in the NIL era, their stock has risen and Syracuse's stock has dropped in terms of how good of a job Syracuse is. But Syracuse was able to really upgrade their budget last year, and you hope that there could be enough buy-in at the top level or enough of a push to get money out of donors to get it across to people that this is a very important time for the Orange basketball team to have good resources. And you'd hope that given that resources are a big part of the story, if you could rise the resources a little bit, and you couple that with the fact that Syracuse does have the prestige, which is not nothing, it's just not as significant as it used to be. I think Syracuse is going to end up one of the bigger jobs of this cycle. I think you're foolish to look at Syracuse right now and not say that's a place where you can go, you can win, and you could be competitive. It's the 6th best job in the ACC. It's not like it's a bad job necessarily. It's just not the level of job that we used to think it was because of NIL. The way I look at it, maybe it was a top 15 job about 10 years ago. It's probably more like a top 30 job in the country right now. Is a top 30 job in the country good enough to get Josh Schertz? That's what our next caller wants to talk about. Let's go to Nick all the way out in Las Vegas. What's happening, Nick?
Happy Friday, Tim. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. I'm great. It's Friday. How can you not be?
Yeah, Happy Hour Friday show. Doesn't get any better than this. I guess it's not
That's
happy
right.
hour for you yet, but, happy
not
hour for
quite.
the East Coast. Yeah.
Close enough, though. Close enough. So listen, I agree with you that the resources were better this year, and they need to be better for next year. And that's partially why I don't think Schertz is going to be the guy, and I'll tell you why. We have to keep in mind that Red's going to have a buyout at the end of this.
Yes.
So you have to pay the buyout, and I think Schertz is going to demand somewhere around $4 million.
I would agree. Yeah.
And people have been adamant that the money they spent this year wasn't enough in NIL. So that has to increase.
Not enough to maybe be like top 3 in the conference. It's enough to be a tournament team, though, I believe, and I think they should be a lot better.
Yeah, but if you want to, go all in on this and make sure that you put something that's going to be a winning product and something that's going to please the fans, you would think that's going to increase at least $1 million, right? So you have to come up with, I think I heard the number for Red was somewhere around $2.5 million. So let's just say that for talking purpose.
Yeah.
$1.5 million more for Schertz. Then you have to pay his buyout. And then you have to pay another $1 million in NIL. I just don't think that's realistic. I think you can find someone who's going to pay. My personal opinion, Brian Hodgins from South Florida has a relationship with the Lallies. I think the Lallies will contribute to basketball if he comes here. And I think that's a more feasible route from an economic standpoint. Just my opinion. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree with you. I think it's a good point that they're going to have to probably pay the next head coach 50% more than they're paying the head coach right now. We don't know the figures, but I'm sure it's somewhere in that neighborhood, I'm guessing. And not only that, but they would probably have to pay the assistant coaches for Josh Schertz more than they're paying the assistant coaches right now under Adrian Autry, I'm guessing. So there would have to be a significant upgrade in resources to get to Josh Schertz. And a lot of fans right now are listening probably and saying, well, do it. It's dire times. You've got to do it right now. Josh Schertz is the name. He's a proven winner. He's the guy we want. Go out and get him. And then if you get him, then the NIL coffers will keep coming. And that's the decision the university needs to make. It's not as simple as the university snapping their fingers and saying, oh, yeah, we just found a couple extra $1 million under our couch. Like, now we're ready to go get Josh Schertz. It's not like they've been holding back money from Adrian Autry, or they've made the decision in the last couple years, we're not going to go all in on basketball. They've known for a while that basketball is their biggest sport, and they're a basketball school, and they've tried to put together as much resources as possible for basketball. And we're still saying what they're at right now is not enough to get Josh Schertz, and that's including the idea that you would have to pay Adrian Autry's buyout. So these are all key points. I guess what I'm saying is I understand why people really want Josh Schertz. I just don't know if Josh Schertz is that likely. I think there's going to be other jobs that are going to be willing to pay him more.
I'm going to leave you with this. I definitely think there's more feasible options that are going to be more economical for the university. And I think the other thing that we have to everybody keep in mind is whatever they do has to be sustainable. So it's not just 1 year.
Yeah.
Because you have to, the buyouts for, I think, 2 years, and then you have to take that money and reinvest it in NIL. So this is a long-term play. So it's not like, okay, a one-time investment. This is a reoccurring investment that's going to happen year in and year out. So that's why I think there's more feasible options.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I'll also say this. It feels like every year the salary is going up on these top players. And we'll let Nick in Las Vegas go. Good points from him, as always, on the show. But a couple years ago, Coleman Hawkins went to Kansas State for $2 million, reportedly. And that was mind-boggling to me. And that was mind-boggling to a lot of you, because we all kind of were like, how is Coleman Hawkins making this much? And I think it was pretty much consensus that he was the highest paid player in the sport, $2 million. A couple years ago, it was reported that Syracuse's budget last year, I guess, was about $2 million for their entire roster. About $2.5 million is what Jason Belzer, who was the head of the NIL fund at Syracuse, said to Syracuse.com last year about their overall budget. Is that exactly what it was? I don't know, but we'll take his word for it, and that's as good as we can get, really, to transparency nowadays in college athletics. And it was also reported that Coleman Hawkins was making $2 million. Now it seems like the figures you hear about J.J. Starling, Nathan George, Donnie Freeman are all like, I mean, it feels like it's a stone cold fact to some of you that some of these guys are making $2 million to play for Syracuse this year. So I say that to say that the budgets keep going up, up, and up. And I can't for the life of me figure out why or how this is sustainable for college athletics. And I feel that if you actually dive into what's happening in college sports right now, and this is kind of what Kelvin Sampson was getting at with Houston, he said something like, we can't afford to keep paying our players this much. I don't understand how these sports are doing it and how these schools are doing it, but I guess what it comes down to is a lot of these athletic departments are just operating at a deficit right now. Reports came out that UNC lost several $1 million last year. Rutgers is way in the hole. So at what point do we come in and have some common sense here and say this is not sustainable? Paying these players this much money is not translating to enough money in return. And I don't have the answers to that, and it feels like Syracuse just has to try and stay afloat and keep playing this game until there is some guardrails and rules and regulations, and it's not truly the wild, wild west. And, I mean, maybe that's going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen, because how does that happen right now? The toothpaste is out of the tube, and the NCAA does not have set guardrails, and there's precedents that have been set, and I don't know how you come in and course correct now. So I know that talking about this just makes people down in the dumps about the state of college athletics. I'm sure that Syracuse will do all they can to get to the point where they are competitive in resources. And I feel this year, again, I'll say, I think they were competitive in the ACC. And I think they have a talented enough roster. And it's not necessarily a resources problem this year, but Nick's bringing up a good point. You got to keep finding the resources year over year. You can't just have a stopgap year where you go all out. That's not going to be good enough. And that gets back to the conversation that we've had before of, can Syracuse be good at football and basketball at the same time? That's a tough one to answer as well right now. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in. I think we'll bring in our guy Jordan in the next segment and talk a little Super Bowl. Jordan is hanging around today, filling in a producer role. So we'll get to catch up with him and break down the Super Bowl a little bit is probably going to be the plan for our next segment, but we can also take your phone calls if you have other thoughts at 315-437-7644. We're back with more Drive Time.
Did you miss Drive?
Philly, I think that's accurate. $4 million. You think $6 million? I mean, I don't know if maybe he will get $6 million from somewhere, like if it's a true top tier job, but right now I don't think like LSU or Oklahoma or the other top jobs in the cycle are going to give him $6 million. Could be true, Spatch in the Ways. About the toothbrush there, you might be onto something. Well, it doesn't just come down to the brand. It's tougher when you're a private school to be successful in NIL. Let's start there, because let's just break it down. let's compare Ohio State to Syracuse. Ohio State, big public school, graduates way more people every year. Let's say, I don't know what their graduating class is, but I know Syracuse undergrad is about 15 grand. Some of these SEC schools are like 60, 70 grand. So already that's more people that are then increasing your likelihood of having people that have money to give back to the school. The bigger your alumni base, the more you can get donations, right? The more people that are interested. Obviously, there's a lot of people interested in Syracuse, but the percentage of people that graduated from Syracuse and are millionaires, billionaires is a little different than the percentage of people that graduated from, you know, a Michigan or an Ohio State, I'm sure. And that's why I think those Big Ten schools are doing very well. And then you could get into, I think, they never jumped into NIL super aggressively at the start, and they're kind of playing catch up a little bit with how they get the message across and how they convince donors to contribute. Yes, Jordan Capozzi in the house. Oh, Brian's birthday? I did not know that. I got to text him. Fran Brown's birthday was recently, too. 44 for the Franimal. What's up, Gavendo? Maybe you're right, Philly. I don't know. I'm not as up to date on. I could look into it more, certainly, but we're sort of splitting hairs anyway. I think regardless, they're going to have to pay him a lot, and they're going to have to pay him a lot more than what they're paying Red. I could look into it more and give you a more confident answer on what he's going to garner, but he's going to garner a lot of money. So I think we're in agreement there. Who do we give flowers yesterday? What's going on in the YouTube chat? South Florida is a bigger job than Syracuse. Wow, we've really fallen. I think there could be a super conference for football that leads to basketball conferences changing around, John. I'm excited for next year's football season. Yeah, I would agree, Nick, that right now LSU and Oklahoma are pretty appealing jobs. I think Syracuse is still an appealing job and probably in the same tier as those, but LSU and Oklahoma are going to pay more to their roster and their coach most likely, so it depends on what you like. Rolling along on a Friday afternoon drive time in Central New York. 315-437-7644. Always the phone number to call. We will not have a pregame show tomorrow ahead of the Virginia game because we will be on the air here for men's lacrosse. That will get going at 11:30. ESPN Radio Syracuse tomorrow for the men's lacrosse game, which gets going at noon officially. Pregame at 11:30. We'll chat with Gary Gate, Jimmy McCool before the opening face-off at noon as the Orange men's lacrosse team takes on St. Joe's. Men's basketball on TK per usual. You can find it on all of our apps as well. TK app, Cuse Game Day app, Varsity Network app is a good one, too, if you want to listen to Syracuse games on the go. And then women's basketball back in action on Sunday for a noon start, 11:45 pregame here on ESPN Radio for that one. And that is a huge game on Sunday against Louisville, which should be a big crowd. And we've got Dave in Utica who wants to talk a little women's basketball team right now, it looks like. So, Dave, welcome on to Drive Time. How's it going?
Well, I appreciate that, Tim, and I finally got through to you, speak with you. I'd like to bring some compliments your way.
Oh, great. I like those.
Yeah. Yep. You're put it this way, I enjoy your broadcast, both on the women's side and the men's lacrosse. I believe you're the best broadcaster Learfield hired for Syracuse.
Oh, that's way too nice. There's been several that are way better than me, but I appreciate it.
No, I'm strictly prone to listen to radio now, and you paint a picture, Tim, when you're doing your broadcast. You don't realize how good you are. So I appreciate your stylings on the air. So
well, thank you, Dave. Thanks for listening. I appreciate that.
Okay, stuff you probably know. Coach Jack, she's phenomenal, Tim.
Yeah,
she is. I watched her post game last night on YouTube. You know, she just stays the same even keel all the way through. You know what I mean? Never too high, never too low. And the best thing I heard from her players will listen to her. You know, they believe in her. She believes in her play. It's a great thing she's got going.
Yeah,
so,
I agree. I mean, I said this to her yesterday. I can't remember if it was off air or on air, but I think this team is the best example that I've seen covering sports of balancing the line of having a lot of fun when you're off the court and really just like going into events and being excited and smiley and joyful and appreciating the moment and the memories you're making with your teammates, which she is so big on, the sisterhood and all those things. But
she represents Syracuse well.
Yeah,
definitely does.
She does. But they're balancing that line of they have a ton of fun, but they're also super locked in at times, and they're all hard workers. And it's hard. I mean, to have that culture is very difficult, especially when you got a roster of 15 players this day and age, and they all want to play, and they're all probably upset at times throughout the season with their playing time. You just don't get that vibe from the women's team right now. And there's something in there that Coach Jack is getting across to her players very well that's getting them to balance that line of having fun, making memories, but also really locked in when it matters.
Oh, correct. And, you know, it's getting through to them, and, you know, they play for each other. I can see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. I've been going to SU basketball games probably since Manly. So I've seen players develop. I remember Ronnie Cycli back in '84, and the biggest flaw he had was he used to catch the ball inside. He always had the ball down low. And Bernie worked on it and said, you know, Ronnie, keep that ball up high. And I look at Joj, and everything is up high with her. And she's not playing like a freshman at all.
No.
It's just crazy. Her maturity level is unbelievable. Her shot is beautiful. This is the way the ball comes off. Everything's just a complete, you know, it's just I'll tell you, Tom, it just keeps me positive, you know, just watching this women's team.
Yeah,
and
I agree, Dave.
I'll get off there, but I just want one thing, though. I hope they get 10. They should get 10 for these games, Tim.
They should, yeah.
You
At least, I mean, honestly, it's hard to say a number they should get, but whatever it is, we are far off from it right now, unfortunately. And I don't know.
It's a good brand of basketball, though, Tim.
Yeah.
It's a great brand of basketball.
It is. They're playing hard. Thanks for checking in, Dave.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you,
it.
Tim.
That's Dave in Utica. Anyone that wants to compliment me is welcome on the show anytime. And those were great points there from Dave. He's right about Uche Azoje. I'm seeing every game a little bit of progress from her, and that's what's really exciting. And she had a play against BC last night, spun in the lane and hit a fall-away jumper. And maybe the most fun part about the play was her reaction. She looked right over at Coach Jack afterwards, and Coach Jack kind of gave like a look back at her like, wow, that was nasty. Like, I didn't even know you had that in your game. And they were sort of smiling and smirking at each other after the play happened. So seeing little moments like that and seeing how much Uche has grown under Coach Jack's tutelage, and it just feels like there's a lot of stories with this team this year. When you think of Dominique Darius and what she was doing at UCLA and USC and really wasn't a part of their starting lineup or their main rotation, and she was just hoping for a chance, and she's getting that chance. You think of Layla Filia, who had the scary, really scary injury last year, and it feels like fate that she had a scary eye issue after Coach Jack had a similar type of vision eye issue, and they met each other. They connected right away. They bonded over that. And Layla is proving that she's still a star at this level and has come back from that injury and playing great. And then you got Uche Azoje, who Dave said does not play like a freshman, and partially that's because she's 21 going on 22. She's not your typical freshman. She was playing professionally. Coach Jack has talked about she's been away from her mom for a while, and Coach Jack always says, I'm like a mother to my players. They're my daughters. And something about that connection and that bond and the idea that you've got the head coach who is one of the better rebounders in program history, one of the better bigs in program history, and gets to work with this up-and-coming star who is going to be one of the best bigs in the country someday if she stays in college basketball. And you hope that she stays at Syracuse, and you hope that they have enough resources to keep her next year because everyone's going to want her, and she is draft eligible next year. She's going to have options. And you hope that she decides to stay at Syracuse and she falls back on that bond with Coach Jack, almost similar to how Deasia Fair had offers from elsewhere and decided to stay at Syracuse. We'll hit our final timeout, 315-437-7644. If you want to check in for one final segment or another thought on the other side, we can talk anything you want as we return from break, and we'll hit some shout-outs before we get off the air today and for the week here on Drive Time. You're listening to it on ESPN Radio, QSportsTalk.com.
Be sure to tune
Yeah, South Florida is not a better job than Syracuse, so I would agree with that in the YouTube chat. That goes without being said, I think. It was not my dad. I've never met Dave, I don't think. Paid him to say all those nice things about me, though. Yes, Spatch in the Weeds. How about that? But be careful. If you say that, people will get mad at you. Be very careful. Tread lightly. That's all I've ever been trying to say, really, when you boil it down. All I've ever said is the next head coach is going to ask, what are our resources? That's just as good of anything as a fact. Philly's most wanted. I don't know for sure, but I think that it was pretty much a lock. It was going to be Coach Jack. Her team at Buffalo was playing great at the time, and they beat Syracuse that year in the Bahamas, and it's just as Wildak said, it was the right coach at the right time. They wanted an alum, and I mean, they interviewed other coaches, and I wouldn't confidently be able to say those other coaches. I've heard rumblings of who it was, and they're all pretty good coaches from what I've gathered. But I think everyone was not surprised when it was Coach Jack. And, you know, it's out there like Wild Hack, terrible at his job. Wild Hack, terrible at making hires. I think it's fair to critique some of the hires he's made. I would also say the Fran Brown hire was the outside the box move from him. Every other hire he's made, maybe not every other hire, but he's really leaned towards like just kind of that obvious in-family candidate. Gary Gate maybe was a little bit of a risk, but it made sense. Kayla Traynor made a lot of sense. Reggie Thorpe made a lot of sense. Coach Jack made a lot of sense at the time. Adrian Autry made a lot of sense. So, right or wrong, I think that's kind of been more of the trend that we can pick out with him. But his best hire probably, as of right now, and we don't exactly know how good Fran Brown is. 2 seasons in, it's still a little bit of a up-in-the-air situation, but his best hire is probably Fran, and that was his most outside the box, most like NIL forward-thinking move, maybe. Well, you could nitpick some of the other hires he's made if you go down like the list of like women's soccer, women's ice hockey, if you really care to dive into that. Volleyball, you can nitpick. Obviously, what his legacy is and what he's defined by is probably this next hire and the Fran Brown hire. I teased Jordan, and then we didn't even have time. Jordan, if you want to come in for the final segment and just show everyone your lovely face, you're more than welcome to do that. Now that I've teased you. ...2016 Seattle you got, Kev?
ESPN 97.7 and 100.1. Watch live on QSportsTalk.com.
Final segment of the week on Drive Time. We got a busy weekend, though, of Central New York sports. Doubleheader for me. I'll be on the call tomorrow noon with Kyle Federley for men's lacrosse. Excited to be back in the Dome for a lacrosse game. I unfortunately had to miss the first one, and Luke Burgess did a great job filling in for me with Kyle last weekend. Oh, look at this. We're going to the bullpen for our final segment of the week. We've called in a real ringer here. Our guy Jordan Capozzi, who is filling in today, and anytime we get a chance to bring Jordan on the air, I mean, just for memory's sake, we were talking about Coach Jack's team. You know, they really are appreciating the memories, and just for memory's sake, Jordan, we got to get you in the studio. I teased you earlier. You're rocking the Patriots old school Deion Branch jersey. You've got the Pats beanie on.
Careful calling it old school.
Okay, well, it's not the retro, the one that everyone loves. It's the classic navy, but it's an old school player. It's an OG fan move.
Again, I think a lot of people listening, you're calling Deion Branch old school right now, Tim.
Deion Branch is not a current player on the team, so maybe I'm loose with old school, but you're proving your fandom here with the jersey.
Oh, yeah. No.
Former Super Bowl MVP, Deion Branch.
Looking forward to the game on Sunday, obviously. If people remember me for one thing, then you'll know what I'm about to do right now. Let me just say, Tim Leonard, if you like to partake in the wagering on the game, if you're just having a little fun, I'm not sure what you can take in New York and what you can't. Like MVPs, it's tough in New York.
Okay.
So if this is accessible, this might be an internet exclusive. I know quarterbacks win MVP, but Jackson Smith and Jigba is like plus 550, man. Bet 10 to win 55. If you can get your hands on an MVP bet, what do you think is more likely? Sam Darnold or Smith and Jigba? He's gonna have like 120 receiving yards. If Darnold has a good game, he's gonna get in the end zone. So that's my little.
I was thinking, who's like Seattle's top pass rusher? I should probably know, but I was thinking that has a chance. Maybe I thought that's
DeMarcus Lawrence is the biggest name.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. I think that's a good value play.
If you want to get real crazy, Tim. Okay. Because I'm a Pats
That's what
guy.
we're doing here. Get real crazy.
I like Marcus Jones and I like Rashid Shaheed. If either team has the gumption to punt it in bounds, they could take one back. I love Marcus Jones, man. This could be a low-scoring game. These are two excellent run defenses. You got two teams taking 2 weeks to prepare for each other. I don't think anybody's super sold on either quarterback. I think each fan base is. I think people tends to be a little more comfortable with Darnold than Drake May, but I think
I'm worried about Drake May's shoulder a little bit.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
You're not worried?
No, it'll be fine.
You got your sources? You're giving me a smirk over there.
It'll be fine.
You're like Kyle McCord with your smirk. All right, so you think the Pats are going to win, or you're going Jackson Smith and Jigba MVP, so that's scaring me.
Yeah, Give me the Pats.
Okay.
Just for vibes.
Low scoring, though, you think?
Yeah.
Interesting how you brought that up.
I think they're the best run defense in the league statistically since they got Milton Williams back.
Yeah.
Paid a lot of money for him.
What's the over-under for this?
Oh, goodness me. I forgot. It might have been at like 45.5.
But you're taking the under the way you're talking.
We'll see.
I can sense. I'm connecting dots here.
Perhaps. Life's too short to take the under, they say.
Okay. Good to have you back on the air, even though it was just for a minute, Jordan Capozzi. Always fun to chat with you, and hopefully our Pats get it done this weekend.
Always a pleasure, Tim.
We'll see. No one else wants to hear that. Everyone listening right now is so upset to be listening to Syracuse Talk Radio and hearing two Patriots fans.
This is a comeback story for the ages.
It's true.
They thought the Patriots were dead when Tom Brady left.
At least they're not
support the underdog. Support the little guy.
Right. They were the worst team in the league maybe last year.
Yeah, you're showing your true
Thought
colors.
America likes an underdog.
Support the little guy. Come on.
Oh, man, people are going to hate us. All right, that is Jordan Capozzi, and that is a week of shows on Drive Time. We'll be back next Monday, 5 to 6 p.m. every weeknight. You can always listen to the show in podcast form. It goes out on our podcast feed. Just search ESPN Syracuse /Utica Rome in the podcast feed. You can also find on-demand versions of the show on YouTube, Q Sports Talk on the YouTube page, and QSportsTalk.com is our Twitch stream that has a live chat for all of the shows. And if you listen to the show in on-demand fashion afterwards and you're thinking, man, Tim's takes on the next head coach at Syracuse basketball are terrible, we welcome your phone calls. And if you want to call in for the first time and vent about the state of Syracuse basketball, you are more than welcome to do that here weeknights 5 to 6 p.m. That'll wrap it up for this week. Thanks to everyone in the Q Sports Talk chat. Thanks to Jordan for producing, and we'll talk to you next time on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com.
Did you miss